Well, the EFF has heaped praise on outgoing Joburg Mayor Mashaba. It says it's disappointed he will no longer be in charge of the Metro, but that he's made a bold move. The party was instrumental in the DA wrenching control of Johannesburg Metro from the ANC. But Mashaba's resignation has raised the prospect of the ANC regaining control of the city. So to discuss this, we're joined now by EFF spokesperson Vuyiseni Ndlozi. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
I was reading your press, and one thing is for sure is that you were able to balance it out in terms of, even though you've been critical of Mashaba at times, but also you said that he was very bold, and there's certain aspects of him that you really appreciate, and one that's such that he was not an arrogant man.
Absolutely. Remember that the government that he presided over in Johannesburg was a hung municipality, so it was essentially a coalition government. And of all the mayors that presided over hung municipalities following the 2016 local government elections outcome, he was the only one who understood that he did not win.
Yeah.
That he needed other people, he needed to build consensus, and at all times humble himself when something brilliant, something superior in relation to suggestions comes from people that are other than the DA.
Yeah.
And therefore, in that regard, he was very humble, he was consultative. He was willing to concede. We managed to persuade him on a number of questions that were not DA policy, opening clinics 24 hours a day, even in the weekends, insourcing outsourced workers that were actually outsourced by the ANC government in the cleaning and the security staff of the city, expropriating buildings, particularly around Alex, with the purpose of social housing, but also uncovering a lot of corruption, as you know, in excess of billions and billions of rand, and submitted documents of evidence to prove that corruption, and the NPA to this day has not prosecuted those cases. And therefore, he was a person that you could persuade towards the poor direction of the city becoming about the poor as opposed to being about profit. And you would know that the tendering system prioritizes entrepreneurs or tenderpreneurs that want to, as much as possible, make profit out of business of the city. So he was willing to shut down some of those things, build internal capacity, including stabilizing the JMPD, by the way, setting up units within it that are fighting organized crime. These are positive developments in a city that was actually on its knees when it was taken over, and in a space of 3 years achieved much more than the ANC did in 24 years.
So how then do you feel about the African National Congress saying that he's perhaps running away because of the financial status of the city of Johannesburg? And do you think, secondly, that the ANC now stands a chance to regain control over the city of Johannesburg?
I don't even know where that comes from. I mean, all of us have to speak with some dignity of intelligence here. What are the chances of regaining a city here? Have you seen the numbers just in these elections of the ANC in Johannesburg? The ANC will never come back. The ANC is going to lose more because the center of the ANC loss is not the DA, it's us. And we're on the rise. We're not going to ever do anything except rise.
Yeah. They
do everything in their power to destabilize the image of the EFF. We come out, we go into an election, we will kill them. So I think that there is a dishonesty on their part, because what is 3 years in the 21 years that the ANC had in Johannesburg, and it did nothing for poor people? Mashaba gets in, and in 3 years, insources in excess of 7,000 people, give them decent salaries, improving their salaries from some of them 1,800 to 8,000 to 12,000. That's dignity of work, which is something that was impossible even with an ANC that goes into a promise with the SACP on its side and COSATU on its side.
Well, it sounds like, he was a great, a colleague, and not only just colleague politically, but really somebody that, as you say, was able to sway policies. If we should say now that he is in search of also political home, if we should say, guys, consider me, would you consider him? Because you don't have much of, in terms of being able to say, actually, under his helm, the city of Johannesburg suffered. No, you're saying he was able to implement certain measures that ensured the growth trajectory of the city. So if we should come to you and say, EFF, do you have a political home for you? What do you say?
Well, the doors of the EFF are open to everyone. Our policies are very clear. We're one of the most clearest, most stable, most united political parties. And this is why the people of Johannesburg ought to start taking decisions decisively in relation to who they vote for. You've got to start investing in stable political parties, because people who are divided in the midterm, they can throw tantrums, or they can resign, or, you know, it's like, I mean, look at the ANC. The ANC goes into an election speaking seriously about pro-poor policies. They come out, they are privatizing aspects of ESCOM, they want to privatize SAA, they want to do everything in their power to keep the status quo that has been there in terms of macroeconomic planning in the last 25 years, which has actually not benefited, firstly, the poor, secondly, black people, but it has maintained white privilege and power in the economy. And that's why they must never come back in Johannesburg.
On behalf of, I mean, you speak about political maturity, though, but the manner in which he behaved, I'm speaking about now outgoing Mayor Herman Mashaba, one would criticize him and say, was that actually a sign of political maturity? Because there's work to be done. As you rightfully say, there's work to be done. And by you resigning, because the DA federal chair, you may not necessarily agree with their policies, you may not necessarily agree with her as an individual, but by you resigning, is that a sign of a politically mature individual who's able to do that?
Takes guts. I think we should all learn from that. There are a lot of politicians who profess their personal beliefs, for instance, to be communism, to be socialism, but they stay in a neoliberally ran ANC that is pushing free market policies, market-driven solutions to state-run institutions. They stay there because they want to be ministers. Personal conviction is very important in these days of serious moral indignation. So the guy tells us that I have been struggling, and we know that from the beginning we warned them. We warned them about white caucus in the DA that refuses black leadership, that refuses to concede to black direction. And once they blamed the working with the EFF in Johannesburg on their election reductions, which is a very racist statement and a very racist diagnosis. Once they blamed that government in Johannesburg, cooperation with the EFF is the reason why we went down. It means they are coming for him. So we're not shocked. Actually, we applaud a person who stands up for their personal convictions that the racists are back. A racist agenda has won in the DA, and I cannot be part of affirming white supremacy in the DA. That's important. Yeah. And a lot of us in our lives, particularly politicians, we need those guts.
Okay, well, we certainly know where you stand with that. Do you think Musi is on his way out as well?
Well, I mean, we don't know. We hear all types of rumors about a lot of black people who want to also follow suit in the DA. We'll see. They are still, you know, the dust is still settling. But the most important thing here, we won't really have much to say about them. We had something to say here because there was something of a serious progress that was happening in Johannesburg, which was beginning to shine light on how the future of coalitions can really do work for the interests of the people.
Thanks very much for that. Mr. Bozi joining us there for that conversation.